shut up and sit down, you big bald fuck.
Why the ball soldering fuck is anyone surprised that there has now been a death? And there may have been deaths before, but that's part of the problem. It's hard to tell. A couple of hundred tiki-waving, genuine Nazis did not just appear out of nowhere. There is a context. There is a lead-up to all this. To anyone who has been paying the slightest bit of attention, this is not a surprise. At fucking all. And there is an enormous double standard going on that is only going to further fuel the alt-right. What are you doing? Why haven't you been paying attention? You know, I love being right, but not about this kind of thing. Not when it ends up with someone dead. You know, there's still a certain amount of perverse satisfaction about going, yep, called it. But that pales into insignificance to the horror and upset that someone is dead. When Antifa and all these other groups just started attacking run-of-the-mill conservatives wearing MAGA hats, or, you know, disrupting Milo's talks or whatever else with violence and rioting and property destruction and so on, we all said it was only going to be a matter of time until the right got more extreme and the right started using more violence. And wouldn't you fucking know it, that's exactly what happened. That's what happened with Based Stickman and so on. And we said then, okay, there you go. We called it. We predicted this. And now it's only going to get worse. And it's only going to escalate. And, well, wouldn't you know it, we were fucking right again. At what point are you bumbling chuckle fucks going to start listening to us? The people who know the history. The people who understand how we've gotten to this point. Yeah, do you really think continuing to call anyone to the right of fucking Stalin a Nazi is suddenly going to start working? Or is it going to continue to alienate people and make the right wing seem more credible, as though they've got at least some ghost of a point when they talk about how they're being repressed? And there's these double standards that make the far right look credible, and it drives me fucking insane. Be consistent. If racism is wrong when a skinhead with a swastika tattoo does it, then it's equally wrong when some dunderheaded, historically revisionist numbnuts black supremacist does exactly the same thing. But for some reason that second category is off limits. Never mind that tons of people, important, significant leaders within Black Lives Matter, spin this nonsense about Yakub and cavemen and degenerate mutants being white people. Somehow that gets a pass. That gets swept under the carpet. But the equally moronic, stupid and racist nonsense coming out of the mouths of the alt-right, that gets spewed everywhere. Antifa have been using violence, property damage, riots, assault, and so on for years now. Attacking people, disrupting meetings to discuss things. You know, this meets the definition of terrorism, using violence for political ends, to deny other groups a voice. This has been going on for years, and they've basically just been kind of allowed to do it, for the most part. That is equivalent to what these morons with their tiki torches have been doing, except it's taken a lot longer for the far right to stoop to that level. There is political, moral and ethical equivalence here. It's not a false equivalence. And frankly, the alt-right is not remotely as scary to me as Antifa and the pseudo-left, the regressive left. They've adopted the mantle of the left, but they're about as left-wing as my right testicle. nobody takes the far right seriously. You know, even with the maximum effort in a context that is kind of maximally good for them, the best they've managed to do is to muster a couple of hundred chads who look ridiculous. You know, that's it. They have no real control over any institutions in the way that the regressive left does. They have no social cachet. They have no real significant media, even Fox News and so on. These are relatively moderate conservative voices compared to these people. They have no outlet other than what? Stormfront? Who the fuck takes that seriously? While the regressive, explicitly racist forces on the so-called left, the authoritarian left, they have the institutions, they have the media, they dominate social media. The Google memo has shown that even a reasonable, rational, liberal person who just happens to quote wrong but accurate science is going to get cast out. You know, we've got social media controlling what people can access, we've got demonetization, delisting, all the rest of it, even of moderate conservative views. I'm far left and I find this outrageous. I don't want anyone censored unless what they're saying meets the harm principle. And all of this that you're doing only feeds the far right. It's why we're here. It's why we've gotten to this point. It's why they've gotten the degree of sympathy and support that they have. You know, you have to stop and think and look at the context and look at the history and ask yourself, how and why did we get here? And people are acting like these Nazi chads just sprouted up overnight like mushrooms. Fucking bullshit. So you might blame Trump, but okay, how did we get Trump? We got Trump because of this bubbling up of support from the right, from these neglected communities of poor whites, you know, ravaged by opioids and meth and loss of jobs and just total disaffection, and yet they're told that they're privileged and they're blamed for all the ills and wrongs of the world. And so that builds resentment and more resentment, and they can see the double standards. Even Thicky McInbred can tell that there is a double standard at work when certain people are allowed to be racist towards him, but he's not allowed to express his racism. You know, they can see that double standard, and so that resentment builds and builds and builds and builds until Bowen Luke can yeehaw the General Lee into the Electoral College and get this orange monstrosity into the White House. And you will excuse and try to understand the anger and the resentment in poor black communities, but you will not try to understand and address the anger and resentment in poor white communities. Why? Because you're fucking racist. Class war, not race war. Class war, not race war. Drill that into your fucking head. These problems are universal. They affect everyone. There is no such fucking thing as white privilege. There is class privilege and wealth privilege. That's fucking it. And so long as you keep blaming people who through no fault of their own are getting fucked over by the society that we live in because of the colour of their skin, you're going to be a fucking hypocrite and you're going to raise their interest in identity politics. If you consider black identity to be meaningful, if you consider Hispanic identity to be meaningful in some way, when all it is the melanin content of your fucking skin, then is it any wonder that radicalized whites who feel themselves being marginalized, picked on, who are victims of tolerated racism, of genuinely institutional racism, is it any fucking wonder that they are also going to grasp onto this toxic ideology of identity politics? Why is this a fucking surprise to anyone? It's so fucking obvious. And unfortunately, I can think of no better example of this kind of double standard than people being mown down by cars. Alright? Someone called Mohammed with, just radicalized written on the back of his van with a bunch of cans dangling off it, can drift that van into a mob of kids screaming Allahu Akbar and waving a Quran out of the window, and people will be, well, not all Muslims, and we can't be sure. We should wait. We should hold on to be sure exactly of what this guy's motivation is. I mean, we can't be sure, and maybe he's disaffected. We should address Islamophobia. That's what we should be doing in this instance. And then some Chad plows into a bunch of protesters at this, and instantly all white people are to blame. Not even all fascists, which might be a more reasonable way to approach it. No, all white people, and all white people need to apologise for being white because of this guy. Is the double standard there, not obvious enough? What the actual fuck? I'm at a huge fucking disadvantage here because I know the history, I know politics, I know how this works, and so I'm forced, like Cassandra, to give you my predictions and then watch people still act out the stupidity all over again. Look, if you want to draw this back from the brink, here's what you do. You don't turn up to right-wing rallies and events and cause violence, because that's only going to feed into them. Leave them the fuck alone, pay them no attention, make it not newsworthy. That's what you do. And stop being racist. Rediscover principle. If we're gonna say racism is bad, then let's make it so that racism is bad. Whichever race is doing it to whichever group, whichever other race. And let's not enter into this Orwellian redefinition of racism as prejudice plus power. Not that the white people who tend to be racist tend to have much power anyway, which kind of foxes the whole fucking thing. And if we're gonna say violence is bad, then let's say it's bad whenever anyone does it. Yeah, for political ends, let's consistently call that fucking terrorism. Whether it's the right-wing Chads, whether it's the pseudo-left-wing LARPing at being anti-fascists, whether it's Black Lives Matter. Let's treat it all as equally bad, equally unjustified, and let's try and put a stop to it, and let's try and either address or debunk the concerns of all of these communities, all of these groups. If there's nothing to what they're saying at all, then we should be able to show it. If their ideas are bad, we should be able to deconstruct and disarm them through speech. And this is why preserving free speech is so important. We are at this point of violence because speech has been denied. Speech is the underlying right from which all others derive. If we can't speak, if we can't discuss, if we can't talk to the maximum level possible without harm, then no wonder people are going to resort to sticks. Fuck all of you, I am massively disappointed in the entire human race. Stand in the corner and think about what you've done.
And I did a food drive for the homeless, and they got mad because I did not feed no white homeless people. Yes, I turned them away. Girl, I had a box of Lunchables, and I was giving people the lunches. Here you go, brother, sister. Here you go, brother. Here you go, sister. And the white people are like, oh, they give him lunch. They I told me. They said, oh, he give him lunch. I'm hungry too. Bitch, you gonna still be hungry. Cause this ain't for you. This ain't for you. This ain't for you, bitch. You still gonna be hungry, cry.